Hello and welcome to this episode of Humans of Horses podcast. My name is Elle and I am the human of three wonderful horses, Fion, Zirconia and Morgan. With me today is Vicky. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you first of all for letting me come on and talk to you. My name's Vicky Flood. It'll become clear I'm an ex-owner of a lovely thoroughbred. And I'm not haven't got any horses at the moment, and I'm not quite sure what my plans are because there's been some life changes, but that's me.
Yeah. So on that note, would you like to introduce your horse who has unfortunately left the physical realm?
Yes, yeah. So music. Um, my my ho- my horse was music, and he is. I'm trying to remember his racing name. It may come to me. And he was a 17-year-old thoroughbred who'd come to me as a happy hacker. The people who I'd bought him from, because I live up in Scotland, I went to go and see him, and they had been wanting to do some eventing with him and had done some things, but discovered that there was an issue with his back end. His pelvis was slightly different. It was a little bit higher at one side than the other. And after doing a little bit of investigating, they discovered that he could not be doing jumping and carrying on and stuff. So they sold him for obviously a much reduced rate, which is what happens to myself, and were very vigilant about who it went to. Um, for a smaller fee, and it came to me. What was it? September, the end of September 24. No, 23. So he spent a year with me, and my plan was to um, give him the winter because it was end of September when he came to me. Give him the winter, and then start to go through the motions of putting him back into work as a hacker and a pootler around the woods in the spring. So he came to us and everything was fine. And I had a vet come and check him over because I'd not done any vet checks. You don't need to do that necessarily. I'd been to visit him and taken a friend and stuff, and everything seemed fine. And when they decided what they were doing, they took his shoes off. So he didn't have any shoes on when he came to me. So the first thing I needed to do was to get a farrier to come out and see to him. So I'd had a vet come out just to check him, and she said he seemed fine. We had a little chat about his pelvis and stuff, but agreed that what it was that I was going to be doing with him wouldn't necessarily be an issue. And I obviously said my plan was that it would be spring when I put him back into work. So a farrier came and told me that he had a club foot, which I'd not come across before and not noticed. It just looked a bit smaller. It didn't look, and he said it's a club foot, and he explained to me lots of different things about how that affects the biomechanics, and which I didn't know was biomechanics at that time, but that's what it is, and shortened bones and all sorts of different things, and that he would need special shoes. I would never be able to put him barefoot because I'd never find boots for him, and that he also had navicular. So this was the start of my freaking out time because I was like, okay, so there's all these different things that are going on, and my brain was freaking out a bit because I'm also neurodivergent, so things are always a little bit bigger. But it also helps you spot things as well, which is what I've reflected on. So we put some shoes on him. The clubfoot shoe lasted 3 weeks. I also had to put some overreach boots on him as well, which I think is probably quite normal for thoroughbreds. But they had to be in the field and everywhere really. And I think he lost 2 or 3 boots within a few weeks or something like that. So, okay, so I'm going to have to manage overreach boots. I'm going to have to manage the shoe coming off. I decided that there's probably no point in putting shoes back on him. and got a barefoot trimmer. I struggled with the farrier that I got, and he was a little bit rude to me. So I just thought, okay, I'm not gonna continue down that route. And there's probably no point in him having shoes on if he's in a field anyway. So I spoke to a barefoot trimmer. He came out to see me and discovered that also music had significant thrush
Mm.
as well that had probably been there for a while. Now, there is a bit of naivety on my part because I'd not spotted that it was thrush. And the horses that I'd been riding at the riding school and things like that had not had those difficulties. So I'd never seen it before to know that it was there.
Mm.
So we then had to start treating that, and the trimmer started sorting out his feet. Then I had somebody. There's I don't want to go through the whole chronological order of things, but as we were moving through winter and seeing all these different things, he had a burst abscess. He had so I had a couple of people that came out and saw that he had a swollen pastern, and if you know how to spot these things, if you obviously have been around horses a lot and you see this a lot, you can spot it straight away. And these people are going, that pastern's a bit swollen. And so then I obviously started keeping an eye on that. And then some days it'd be really swollen. I think he ran around the field or something once and it was like a balloon. I was like, so there was all these things that information I was starting to gather over what was happening, what his past was previous to his owner that sold him to me. I did speak to Cooper Wilson, who is a animal communicator. He's known he's North Yorkshire way, and I'd come across him. I think Horse and Hound had done a a a, a piece on him and seen it on Facebook. So I got in touch
Oh,
with him
wow.
and had a conversation with him. And he said he was really lovely, and he said to me that he believed that the issue with music's back was that he had gone over once. He'd had some owners in the past that were, um, what did he call them? I think he called them professional idiots. Um, because they'd, I mean, that was his opinion. That's what he was feeling. Um, that he'd gone over, maybe try to put him in, forcing him into something, like a horse box or something like that, gone over and not got a vet, and that had
Mm.
caused the damage. Um, so what else did he say? He said a number of different things that were just that were quite eye opening, but it was just really me gathering information and trying to understand, and you know people actually looking at him, people sensing things. I trusted what Cooper was saying. Um, uh, so yeah, so I'm going through this process of gathering information, seeing the swelling in his body change, like his pastern went down and his sheath went up. Just in front of his sheath, it'd been cleaned one day, and then the following day it was swollen. So there was kind of all these different things. I'm going, oh, it's moved from one end of his body. As we were moving through, his feet were starting to get better. There was new growth on his hoof wall, which you could hugely see. It was quite a difference. I was feeding him differently as well because I wasn't feeding him for working and something
Mm.
specifically. I was feeding him in a different way and using different feed for him. And he'd obviously got a field full of grass as well, which he absolutely loved. And he looked fine, to the untrained eye, he looked absolutely fine. But when you start looking at all these different things and you're having different conversations with people, and I was starting to worry a bit more. And one of the biggest things, certainly to do with his back end, was around when the farrier came or the trimmer came. He couldn't hold his legs long enough.
Mm.
So certainly his back legs, when the trimmer came, we didn't purposefully have him leant against the stable wall, but sometimes the trimmer would have to do a little bit, give him his foot back pick it up, do a little bit, give him his foot back. And it wasn't because he was being naughty. It was because he was becoming unbalanced. And we got lice
Mm.
as well, and that freaked me out as well because I'm like, how on earth, what have I done wrong? And I'd read other people saying I was absolutely mortified. My horse had lice. I'd bought a rug. It's possible that the lice eggs were in a rug from somebody else that you didn't know because they get these things. So, but the other thing was when he had the lice, he was trying to scratch himself and he fell over. So
Mm.
the weakness in his body was, I was starting to clock that and see what was going on and develop this assessment period, if you like, that did get me to a point where I went, I'm not putting him through next winter.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think it was fair. So I've rambled on quite a bit here, but I'm just trying to give you sort of like some kind of he looked fine, but actually I don't think he was. And as I
No.
spoke to somebody who came and looked at his back for me, I mean, this horse was rode by Frankie Dettori when he was a racing horse. It was, it would have been in good form. And this person who I spoke to said, I'm absolutely surprised that he's ended up in this state. Now, whether or not that is through lack of work or the way that he's been treated. And I'm not saying it's very hard because I don't know who's had him. I don't know what the story is. I don't know because people don't pass information on generally when they sell a horse. And for me, I'd want to let people know that this is what he does, this is how he behaves with this is what he, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And
exactly.
the woman who I bought him off was great because she said, keep in touch, give me a ring if you want to ask me any questions. But they'd only had him for a short period of time as well. And I believe he'd been missold from her. So it's the whole industry of selling horses and people not telling people the truth absolutely floors me. It's very sad that people will say that the horse can do X, Y, and Z when they can't. Now, don't get me wrong, horses, when they move from one place to another, will be different because they're with a different human, it's a different environment. I mean, especially if there's a different climate, there's so many intricate details that you have to think about when you're dealing and working with horses. It's untrue. And I don't think all those things are taken into consideration. And I think that there's also naiveties, and it's not, how can I put it? It's not deliberate. It's simply people are not given the right information or the way that they need to look at a horse or communicate with a horse or understand what it is because there's a lot of anthropomorphism that goes on and we think
Mm.
there's the horse wants to go to bed because it's tired. Well, yeah, I don't think it's indicating that. It's something completely different. Um, so, I mean, it's hard for humans to understand humans sometimes. So, you really need to be kind of up on trained and understand what's going on, really. But yeah, so I'd spoken to the vet um, about giving him some Danilon when the farrier came because I was explaining how difficult it was. And I think she was trying to tell me there was nothing I can do to help him. This is the stage that he's at in his life. Um, there was a day when I'd tied him up and I was grooming him and he was leaning back on and like resting on his halter. It's like not like pulling back, but it was like leaning back and sort of pulling gently like he was resting, like he didn't want to be there. That's what it felt
Mm.
like to me. He just didn't want to be there. I'm poking him, prodding him, messing with his feet because I was having to mess with his feet every day, longer than your average bear. Do you know what I mean? The amount of care that he needed because of what was going on with his feet needed scraping out, spraying with stuff, blah, 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 blah. Which to a more sound horse, you'd pick the feet out and that'd probably check that we're okay at the end.
Yeah.
But that wasn't what was going on for him. Coupled with the fact that he would be wobbling when you're picking up his back leg, so the process would take longer. So poking and prodding him longer. So anyway, I spoke to the vet when she came out to do one of his injections, and she said, I can give you some Danilon. So for the next time the vet comes, the trimmer comes, you can give him some of that and see if that helps. And I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to test it. I can give him the Danilon, then I can pick his feet up in the morning and see how that goes. And it didn't. It wasn't any better. So I just thought, I don't feel like I can be drugging this animal to give him what he needs, which is basic care, and just keep going with that. It just didn't sit right with me. Um, there was something else that had happened, and I'm trying to remember. I was reminded then when I said that, and I can't remember what it was. But there was just this plethora of things that were mounting up that was really saying, I can't give you basic care.
Mm.
And I didn't think it was fair. So I decided that I wasn't gonna. We were just moving into summer 24, and I just thought, I can't take you through another winter. I don't think it's fair. Falling over in the mud, trying. He definitely preferred to be out. He didn't like being in. I didn't stable him. We had a field shelter, but I didn't stable him. Um, he was worse if you stabled him. So I'd also had a look at because had cellulitis once, or there was a worry that he was going to get that from the swollen pastern. And the answer to that is movement. Don't stable him,
Mm.
movement. So he probably could have ended up with a swollen pastern longer if he was stabled. So for me, it was a situation of I needed to take a breath and decide what I was going to do, and I made the decision to not take him through the winter. At that point, I still had all the logistics to do, and the actual coming to making that, actually carrying out that decision, and what I was needing to do and stuff, and that was hard work. And
Yeah.
he was in the village where I live, and I told everybody what was happening because they would go up and go for a walk up to see him. And that was their walk for the evening after tea, off up to field to go and see music. So, and everybody loved him because he was so gentle. He was just so lovely. And I spoke to World Horse Welfare twice. Um, they were brilliant. They came out once when I was struggling, seeing him like he was, and then a second time when I was looking at making the decision. And the woman who came to see me was fantastic and practical. Um, Other people had spoken to me about it, so it was like it was getting to that point where, yeah, it was a necessary decision. Yeah, so it was October when it happened, when we did put him to sleep. And one of the things that I was wrestling with as a horse owner and buying an older horse, and one that's been in work since it was probably about 6 months old, preparing, training, all those things. He's much older in work hours than what we might construe a leisure horse, because he started much earlier as well. So he might be 17, but he might also be 23, you know,
Yeah.
because he started much, much earlier, before his bones had formed, before his muscles had formed, and so lots of things to take into consideration. Um, the morning of it happening, it was horrible, horrible morning. The wind was high, it was raining, it was horrible. When the vet came, sun came out. Very,
Mm.
very bizarre. Very, very bizarre. And the when she came to give him his injection and stuff, he went down very quickly and it was gone. And she said, that's the fastest I've seen. She explained to me that he might do X, Y, and Z, and I needed to move out of the way because that might happen. None of that happened. He just went. And she said, that's the fastest I've seen a horse go down. And I went, then he was ready. I've
Yeah.
made the right decision. And it's very hard for horse owners to think about that and think about that stage that they might have to be at. And I think I walked into this knowing that I might have to do this. And it wasn't specifically for him, and knowing that I needed to do it for him, but the riding school that I was at, a horse had an accident in the field, and the vet had to come out and stuff and had to put him to sleep, and I made myself watch that process because I thought, if I'm getting a horse, I have to know what that looks like and what was and
Mm.
the pain of it. And it wasn't my horse, so I didn't feel the same um upset and pain that its owner would have felt. But I needed to watch the process logistically, and that was probably my yeah. I needed to see it because I might have to go through it. So I was prepared, I guess, for what I needed to help music with. I did speak to Cooper again, and I also spoke um to another. I think her name was Susie. It was Jane Pike put me in touch with her, and I spoke to her after I had put music to sleep. But we
Mm.
were talking about how it's a transition. It's the horses don't know. It's just a transition from one thing to another. And it is. It's like a transition for humans as well. Um, but there's obviously some, if we've had a car accident or been poorly or anything like that, then there's obviously that pain of the physical body. But um, the um, the transition that that happened for music was that he had an injection, he'd have felt numb, he laid down on the floor, and that was it. He was gone. And I had a friend. I am really waffling, aren't I? I had a
No,
friend.
it's beautiful.
I had a friend who, she has faith. She has a faith. I don't go to church or anything like that. It's not, I believe in trees and nature and youth work. um, she has a religious faith, and I asked her, would you come and do a blessing for him? And she said, absolutely no problem. She came and did that. So she read a blessing for him. There were there were a number of us there, who came to say bye to him. And she read a blessing and stuff. And after he'd passed, she said, I can actually feel how calm it is. Because
Mm.
she'd studied animal communication previously. She doesn't do it now, but she can feel energies and stuff. And she had, when she'd gone up to see him previously, and when she'd been up with me, she'd tell me she could feel that he wasn't happy, or happy in the sense that he was in pain, or that he had aches and pains that he wasn't happy with, as opposed to he was happy in the field, and happy with me, but not happy in his body.
Mm.
Anyway, the she said about we'd gone through the process, and about 5 minutes into him going, she said, it's really peaceful. She said, he's gone. He's left. He's gone.
Mm.
And whenever I remember him, if I'm out with a dog for a walk or something like that, because the lady who I wish I could remember her name. I'll have to give you a name later because I can't remember what it was. But she said to me, when you think of him, he'll be around. And like when you're going for a walk or whatever. And when I do think of him, when I'm out with a walk with a dog, he's trotting like this, and his tail's up, and he'll buck and he'll run around and stuff. And he couldn't do a lot of that. He did in the field, but then he'd end up with a swollen pasta. So yeah, so I gave him a year off, is what I gave him. Um, he's probably never had that, because what we
Mm.
tend to have is people buy horses and then put them into work, and then they're doing
Immediately.
endurance, or
Yeah.
immediately they're doing endurance, they're doing jumping, they're doing, I want a horse for eventing, and it ends up being the human's agenda of what it is that's going on, as opposed to what the horse might need. And I decided that I was going to go down the road of working out what it was that he needed, as opposed to what my agenda was. The information, I guess, that I was gathering whilst I was spending this time effectively assessing him, it through I'm not, I'm, how can I explain this? I've not had loads of experience with horses. I've had enough, but there are definitely people that buy horses with less experience than me.
Mm.
And I'd, been through loaning at the riding school and things like that to before I'd not made a decision when I went back to riding that I was going to buy one, but it was I'd made myself go through that process of learning lots of things that I needed to do to prepare myself for that. So I was prepared as much as I could be to have a horse of my own. It's very lonely having a horse on your own. I did a share for a little while, but that didn't quite work out. But it was, I'd also, part of the reason why the share didn't work out in a sense was because I'd made the decision to do this, and I did, and the other horse needed to leave before that happened. But yeah, so it was really always more about music than it was about me. Um, when he'd had his shoes put on the first time, I took him for a wee walk out into the woods and stuff, and he was struggling with the stones. Now, he'd not had shoes on for 6 weeks or what have you, but it just didn't seem right to me that a horse would be choosing to try and find the really soft ground. I
Mm.
mean, the tracks around where we are not horrendous, but it just seemed odd to me. Um, the woman who came to see him to check him out for me, that Gina, I call her Gina the back lady. She um very 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 good at her job. And could see that it was probably only okay on one leg, which completely caused the imbalance of what was going
Imbalance,
on in his
yeah.
body. And you get one tiny thing that they'll just throw everything else out. It's like being, with woodwork. If you do a piece of wood and it's a millimeter out here, it's going to be much further out here. And we're not taking those kind of things into consideration. I don't believe we're treating animals, and specifically horses, more like inanimate objects and machines that can do all these things for us. And sometimes we're not even asking the right questions for
Mm.
them to carry out what we need them to do for us. But this kind of almost mechanical, they have to be doing this and they have to be doing that and they have
I,
to be doing it without
I
reading
feel
them.
they're like a means to an end for a lot of the time. They're treated as a means to an end.
Yeah, yeah. Now
Yeah.
there will be people, and this is not obviously across the board, but I do see it as just being different. I have friends who do go eventing, and do things and stuff, but they certainly look after their horses and
Mm.
certainly give them the time off that they need. So it's not like it's black and white,
No,
at
exactly.
all. Um, but yeah, you just, when you see some of the things on social media, or hear tales or watch things, and yeah, yeah.
I had
So
a lovely lady called Rebecca who's on the podcast. I just put her episode out, which is why she's coming up to mind. But I was drawn to her because I was in the Total Contact Saddle community page, and
okay,
she did endurance with a rope halter, I think, or there was a photo of her riding her horse with a rope halter and a Total Contact Saddle and doing endurance. And I just saw this and I was like, he is so at peace with what he's doing and is free. Like he's doing this because he wants to do it and she's
yeah,
supporting him with that.
yeah,
Whereas, other horses who are doing endurance, I just see they're not okay with it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I
So
know that
it's
Music had
just,
done endurance at some point.
well,
Somebody had told me that he had done endurance at some point.
on top of
Um,
racing.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So it, yeah, probably one of the reasons why I gave him a year off. I gave him the winter to decide to look at what it was that we were doing. I don't know whether I knew at that point, but it was really, I really needed to assess, whilst I'd never ever had a horse, to go through that procedure. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Because there might be people who go, well, we'll give them this amount of time to see whether or not X, Y, and Z. But I've never had a horse. He was my first horse. I've loaned, but you're not holding the whole thing when you loan a horse.
No, exactly.
It's somebody else is holding it, and you get to groom them
It's
and
funny.
ride them. And
I was the helper of my horse Fion before I owned him.
yeah,
And I remember saying to my husband, I said, like, I'm really glad, like, I enjoy taking care of him, but I'm really glad I don't own him because we went through a strangles outbreak with
uh,
him, and he got a really bad abscess. And I thought, I'm happy to help out a bit, but I'm so glad I don't have to
yeah,
do all this. And then I ended up with him anyway, so
yeah, yeah.
I'd
Well,
sort of laugh at that.
yeah, yeah. It's a funny thing. But he was, I mean, it was amazing. It was a real gift to me. He taught me a lot.
Yeah,
And, learning on the job is extremely hard, especially with an animal. If you're learning on the job with an inanimate object, it's very different to working on the job, with an animal. And I am an overthinker. But I spoke with that many people. And the final decision, I rang the vet because I did have somebody opposing what it was that I was doing and felt that the vet was wrong. And that was very difficult. With what this person was going through for them, offering to buy the horse off me. Um, she offered me £1,000 with his rugs, and I didn't pay £1,000 for him. And I just thought I can't do that because it's not about me. It's
it's about
about the
him.
horse,
Yeah.
and somebody had used the term once, field sound, and I'm like, what is that? Field sound. So if we were looking at this from that point of view, that he could pootle around a field, then I still don't think he could do that because the winter conditions were really bad. If he was at a yard that was a beautiful yard, like a racing yard, that had everything on tap and no end of vet call outs, probably different story. Um, but nobody was going to take him and do that. And I had no guarantee that that's where he would stay. Because this is not about, the next owner. This is about the owner after that, and the owner after that, and the owner after that. And that's what you have to think about as a horse owner, is it's you're selling to that person, but who might that be, and then that be, and then that be. So there's so many things to take into consideration, and considering his age, the fact that honestly, the stoicism in this horse, we know the
Mm.
stoic, but I think he was hiding a lot more. And if you're looking at an animal and you're seeing him looking okay, like I say, to the untrained eye, he looked absolutely fine. And you get on him and something happens and he's at the other side of the woodland before you can say anything, because he's an ex-racehorse and he knows how to move, and he's in pain while he's moving, he's going to kill someone.
Yeah. So I
And
think that's the
so,
thing. I always see these videos of people almost making jokes about how their horse ran away, and I kind of think, well, you shouldn't be in that position in the first place where you've got so far over the threshold that your horse is going to just run.
yeah,
It's that complete lack of awareness.
yeah. Absolutely. And as a young person, I'm 50 now. So I was um when I loaned a pony as a child, sort of 10, 11, 12. Yeah, 10, 11. I was when I had this pony at a riding school, where I lived in Yorkshire. I knew nothing about what I know now about central nervous systems and how horses behave and looking at their ears and their eyes and their body positions. Absolutely nothing, right? And every show, without doubt, there would be a holler, shut the gate, Aki's coming, because it was called Aki, Little Welsh Mountain, because he would have booked me off. Every show he would book me off because he would have had enough. By the time we've gone through equitation, turnout, and I've been there since 7 o'clock in the morning, prodding and poking him, um, I will have done something that will have done his head in. And that's what I've learned as an adult, looking at that pony that I loaned as a child. That I would have done something that would have put him over the threshold for him to book me off. Do you know what I mean? So I think we should be teaching children and young people all these things so they are growing up with that and
And that
understanding that.
awareness, yeah.
And
So
then
do you
we'll
want to
probably have less accidents.
take me through your journey to kind of to where you are now from having been taught traditional lessons? Because I know you mentioned to me a bit about Pirelli and then Warwick and Jane. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so about 12, 15, 17 years ago or something, I'm a bit funny with dates. Um, I was watching Horse and Country, I think we'd got Sky or something like that, and I was flicking through Horse and Country and came across this guy who had this really big long stick. Now, a stick for me is a punishing device or a lunging whip. Do you know what I mean? And he's got this stick and he's got this horse and this halter, and I'm watching him do these things. And this is Pat Pirelli, and I'm going, oh my God, I've never seen anything like it in my life. And that made me. I forgot about that actually. I'd gone back to riding, doing a little bit of riding at this riding school, which I didn't agree with what they did. But it kind of put me seeing another way. And so Pat Pirelli, and what he was doing and seeing this more natural horsemanship side of things made me start exploring lots of other things in terms of later, a number of years later, central nervous systems and things like that. So I'm a late diagnosed neurodivergent human, so I have autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and dysgraphia. But that was all only diagnosed properly in 2020. And last year was autism. So that all completely makes sense as to me and my life. But it also makes sense to the wanting to look a little bit deeper on things. And being in and out of counselling all my life because I've suffered with depression when actually it's not probably depression, it's emotional dysregulation. And not being able to control my emotions the way that neurotypical people can. All makes sense now. But I've now lost my thread because I'm talking about that
Pat
instead of
Pirelli.
horses. But well, I had the sort of Pat Pirelli phase and looked at when it was very expensive to look at all the things and stuff. So I looked at what I could. Came out of that, stopped doing horses because I really struggled with it, but it was probably more so because I didn't understand me and understand what was going on for me and my central nervous system and things like that. And I did go and see a counsellor at one point who said to me, Vicky, there's part of me that don't understand why you're here because you know all the stuff. You don't need to be here for that. But she told me about having three brains. And the first time I learned about having three brains, I was like, oh my God. So we've got the reptilian brain. Do you know about the three brains?
You have to remind me because I read about it
Okay.
like
So
a while
so
ago,
we've
I
got
think.
we've got the sort of the reptilian brain that is millions and millions of years old. This is the part of our brain that's the part of the central nervous system that keeps us breathing and controls heart rate and things like that. So it's all connected with your central nervous system and to for it's very don't get me wrong, it's complicated is the brain, but it's connected with the autonomic nervous system, the things that are automatic, Okay. Then they've got us another part of our brain, the middle brain, which is where the amygdala lives and things like that. And they're very much connected, all these. They talk to each other. This is how this woman explained it to me, and it's how I tend to explain it to other people, with a little bit more on it now because of what I do for a living. But these two talk to each other. Now, the bit that makes us human, the cortex, right? It's what makes us the humans that we are today. That's what makes us plan our day. It's what where all the knowledge is held from what it is that we're doing, that is only thousands of years old. And it doesn't talk to the rest of it. So if there's a threat, right, you're not thinking about running away, getting out of the way of the bush. You get out of the way of the bus. Now that's the automatic part of your brain that says, I'm going to make you move. So it talks to all your muscles. You know, the bit when you're riding and something frightens you or your horse tries to run forward, the bit that makes you pull, that's that bit. Yeah.
Mm.
So I, up until that point, I didn't understand that at all. So that was probably some of the start of me actually getting to understand what was going on for me. Then COVID happened, and I was listening to Jane Pike at this point, and COVID happened, and she explained what was going on to people that were struggling with what was going on with lockdowns and things like that. Um, and which cemented what what this counsellor had said to me. So it helped to remind and repeat. So you having to go on your own journey to understand what's going on with you and what makes you tick is really important when you're working with horses,
Mm.
because they respond to you. Because if you're scared about something, it's the old adage in it, don't show them that you're scared. They know. They know that there's something going on. So you could be angry about something that's nothing to do with the horse whatsoever, and the horse will pick that up. So I'd gone through this whole um, learning a little bit more about myself. It was Warwick Schiller, because I found Warwick Schiller and started watching his stuff. And then I went to a 3-day clinic that he did, 2 or 3 day clinic in North Yorkshire in Bishop Burton, and sat there glued for the entire time, because Warwick doesn't do breaks. He just starts going and he doesn't stop. And if you need a break, then you have to go and get one, but he's not stopping for that. So I was kind of glued with a packed lunch kind of scenario, definitely on the second day, listening to what it is that he's talking about. But for a good chunk of the time, he was talking about us as humans. And I knew all this, but Warwick reminded me that that's
Mm.
what it was. And so from there, I heard about Jane Pike and Tanya Kindersley. So I started following and being watching what they were doing and talking about and things like that. Very, very interesting stuff. The Red Mare is what Tanya does is really interesting, but Jane's stuff is really interesting as well. Seeing all these different, gathering information from different places to support yourself is really important, because that helps your own development, in my view.
I really love
Um,
that. Yeah. Because some
yeah,
people get really fixated on one method or one person. And I'm like,
yeah,
no, you need bits from everyone and then make your own understanding from that.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'd listen to Jane's stuff on a podcast up at the field or what have you, or listen to Warwick's stuff. I mean, I'd not, to a degree, I'd not got to the point with music. I knew enough, but not to start doing anything in particular, because I wasn't doing anything with him. The only things that I was doing with him were all the sort of really um,
Care stuff.
necessary, yeah, care-based,
Yeah.
necessary, observing, all that kind of stuff, because we weren't doing circles. We probably were never going to do circles. If he was in a better place and not on the wrong trajectory, then we would have never done circles, because that wouldn't have been right for him. We would have been doing sort of straight lines and things, and gentle things, if he was able to do that. But yeah, so um knowing and of going through the process of what Jane was talking about and what Warwick was talking about and stuff really helped sort of, I don't know, make things more rounder, if you like. And the different, they're not entirely different perspectives, obviously, but they are complementary, if that makes sense. And then, Warwick having different people on podcasts and things like that. And some people you'd understand what they were talking about, and some people you wouldn't,
And that's
and that's
okay.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
But that continues, like continuing professional development in it. It's like the continuing development and listening and looking at things from a different point of view and what have you, just helps you be, to a degree, a more rounded person, and certainly a more rounded person with your horse, understanding what your horse is doing and things like that. So, yeah, lots of waffling, I'm afraid.
So I think what I'd like to ask next is your journey of self-understanding. And you mentioned earlier before we recorded about biodiversity and neurodiversity.
Yeah, so I got that analogy from Dr. Tom Nicholson. He's a neurodiversity specialist, and when in my work, what I do, I'm an ADHD coach, and I have a youth and community work background, and I do look at things from a bigger perspective. If somebody's behaviour is not okay, or what we might call not normal or off the charts, or if they have worked with young people that have had specific difficulties, I look at the why. I've always come from a perspective of the why. And he'd explained it in a way, of which I agree with, because I've also done arboriculture, and you look at biodiversity with arboriculture. So the difference between neurodivergence and neurodiversity is that we're all neurodiverse. So when we say I have neurodiversity or I am neurodiverse, yes, you are, because we all are neurodiverse, and have neurodiversity, because the same as we have biodiversity. When you're neurodiverse, um, there is an indication that there is something more going on that impacts your life. And I certainly have neurodivergent. I think I've gone off the wrong tangent. So neurodiversity is we all have. Neurodivergence is there is something extra going on. So neurodivergent humans are more likely to have something impactful, like time blindness and emotional dysregulation, where things seem bigger than what they actually are. They are bigger to the person who's suffering with it or having to deal with it, but may look like it's not a problem to somebody else. So yeah. So what was the question again? I've lost my train of
No,
thought
just your sort
completely.
of journey of self-understanding, and 'cause I think you wanted to talk about that, and I don't know if we already have or
Well, it started a very long time ago, really. I think, understanding, certainly when I started counselling in my 20s, but it's actually turned out that actually I'm neurodivergent, so that's what it is that's going on. And ADHD is a condition of dysregulation, which means that most systems and your dopamine production is dysregulated, and therefore, you're not going to be the same. You're going to be inconsistent. And we have an interest-based nervous system, so you're really good at some things, and if there's something else going on, or you're having to do something that's particularly boring, you will have absolutely no interest in it whatsoever. And oftentimes, jobs nowadays have things like admin and things like that in them. So that's not as interesting as the other things. Yeah. So
I'm just
yeah,
laughing. It's fine.
yeah. It's it's a lot. It is. We're all different. We're all different, and we all have skills. To be honest with you, the only reason why we have these man-made names is so that we can call it something and
Mm.
understand something that's going on with the brain. In olden times when we lived in communities, people would be probably working to their strengths, and doing what it was that they could to be a part of the community, as opposed
Mm.
to being made to sit all day in an office taking telephone calls, or being made to be part of the nuclear family, where you have to, it's mum, dad, two children, and you work 9 to 5, the kids go to school, and you go shopping on a Saturday. You know, that's not how life works, but that's how society thinks it should. And we still have this ridiculous notion that that's how it is. Take the GCSEs that have just come out. Okay.
Mm.
In Scotland, they were a couple of weeks ago, their standard grades, but the GCSEs for England have just come out today. And there'll be huge disappointment in families for their children that haven't got what they should have gotten, because we measure everything on GCSEs, don't we? When actually GCSEs don't measure everything. And it was one
No,
exam, and we should
it's a
not be measuring
snapshot
people.
of the
Yeah,
whole. Yeah.
yeah, we should not be measuring people's abilities and skill levels on one exam. I don't agree with it at all.
No. And then
So
that
yeah,
that result determining supposedly the rest of their life, or at least
yeah,
feeling like that determines the rest of their life, when
yeah.
in actual fact it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Like,
It doesn't.
not at all.
Not at all, no.
So,
I I came out with very little. Um and yeah, yeah, I do different things now, and I've done lots of different things and what have you. But and one of those things has been youth work and working with young people who struggle more than others, because you generally don't work with those that are okay.
no.
So yeah. So I do you have any more wonderful questions for me that I can go off on a
Oh,
tangent on?
well, what was coming up earlier was, because as you're talking, I kind of have little thoughts of like this, that, the other. Um, how do I phrase this? It's like how, because with the ADHD, your brain's very busy,
Hmm.
and how does the time you spent with music, how has that influenced you, or gift, yeah,
Um,
influenced you in the way that it perhaps helps or regulates or whatever? I can't really phrase what I'm trying to say.
no, okay, so I will try and answer that in the sense that I would I would be a lot calmer, I guess, and focused when I was around him.
Mm,
Nothing else was coming in. It's like your brain goes quiet.
just gets
When I
emptied
was around him,
and
it gets emptied.
yeah.
There was Yeah, there probably is a little bit of background noise going on, but generally, once I'd gone up to the field, everything else disappeared. So I had to make sure, for example, I had to make sure that I knew what time it was, because I wouldn't go back to my desk, because I'd need to go back to my desk, because I'd completely get lost up there in what I was doing with him, or observing him, or whatever, and get completely lost in what was going on. Um, and it also made me focus on him, because there was one time he kicked me, and I reflected on that, and reflected on how quickly I was doing something around him. I was needing to get a job done because I needed to get back home for
Mm,
something, and I think it was very windy, and he didn't like the wind. And he kicked me, and as quick as I saw all that unfold, I turned really, really quickly. He just touched my thigh. If he'd have touched my thigh, he would have broken my leg. And I pulled a muscle in my arm, because honestly, it was like a cartoon. How quickly I went, that my shoulder ended up here, is how quickly I turned. And yeah, I ended up with quite a severe muscle strain from that. But if he'd have kicked me, he'd have broken my leg. All my fault. None of it was his fault.
mm,
In my previous years, probably when I was a child, the horse would have got blamed for that, but here there was no blame for him. I was moving too quickly. It was windy. I was not taking care of what it was that I was doing, because we can get a little bit complacent around horses that are good,
Mm.
in inverted commas. But no, it was pretty much everything else disappeared. I was really looking forward to moving through the process and um, doing some work with him in terms of what I was learning from Warwick and what have you. But that never materialised with him. But it's not always necessary for every horse though as well. You've got to really gauge it, whether all horses they need you to behave in a certain way. Because I could definitely see with the riding school horses that I was with and loaning, I could see a difference in the way that they were with me because I behaved differently and was more
I have
aware of
that as
what I was.
well. Yeah. It's really
Um,
interesting, isn't it? Because I think Warwick's even said they're aware that you're aware, even if
yes.
you've never met the horse before. Because I rode a horse a few weeks ago in Somerset on a hack, and I was told she was very calm and very good, and like good for people who are novice like me, because I am a novice rider. And she was acting up; she wouldn't stand still, whilst everyone else was getting on their horses, and normally she would, and I couldn't get her to stand still either, so I just had to sort of go with her flow. And I had this feeling of like, because the communication stuff as well, she kind of said something like, oh, I know what I'm doing, I do the same thing every day and I've done it for years. And I said, I know. I said, but right now you have to kind of stand still if you don't mind. So it's funny because everyone said, oh, she's not normally like this.
Mm,
And I thought, I know. And when we were sort of going up the hill, I noticed she was very like frustrated with her head. She was going like constantly moving it and like chewing on her bit and really agitated by something. And I said, okay, I said, I'm just going to drop the reins. I said, you do what you need to do. And it'll be over soon. Because I said, well, we'll be on top of the hill. So
mm.
it's funny.
Yeah, I mean, they're so sensitive. They're such sensitive creatures, and we don't give them credit for that. I remember, I can't remember who it was that said it, but when you look at them and a fly lands on them, and you see people booting them, kicking them on. You must kick them on, and that they must become numb to it because they know when a fly lands on them. So you kicking them and seeing children be taught to flap their legs
Kick,
and
kick,
kick these
kick.
children, I'm
Yeah.
just like, no, can we stop doing that? And you can't interfere with people's livelihoods necessarily. Um, you can either choose to be around it or not be around it. But um, I remember I had to be very careful over what how I behaved in a sense with the horses or what I did with them with regards to teaching another way because I was always quite sensitive to the fact that horses have a job to do in a riding school, right? And you can't interfere with that, but it was like you can't give them another way for them to have to stand in this way all the time.
Mm,
Does that make sense? I
I
did
think so.
observe in one riding school that I was at once, I did observe a horse I went into with its tack. I went in to go and tack it up and it turned, put its bum to me and put its head in the corner. And I knew exactly that it didn't want to be tacked up.
Yeah.
But I had no choice.
Yeah.
And people might see that just as disobedient behaviour or something, or but that message to me is that horse doesn't want to do its job.
But not okay. Yeah.
It's not okay. But the riding school that I was at was it's a great riding school. It looks after its horses and stuff in the way that that it does. The horses don't want for anything. Um, there is different ways, but you can't do that with a riding school. If there were
No.
riding schools that were set up to do it that way, but society says that this is this competitiveness that we
And you
have
want
to.
the outcome to be fast, not slow
Yeah,
process of self growth.
yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, I might have just answered a completely different question, but
It's
it was,
totally fine.
that's what happens when you get an ADHD in the room. There's tangents. Um, but the learnings that I got off Warwick and things like that, and the horse comes first. Horses
Mm.
always have come first, but they come first in different ways. As a child, and the school that I was at was a BHS school, and I remember I was soaked through. We'd come back from a ride, and I was absolutely soaked through, and I needed to go and get changed, which meant putting the horse in its stable and tying its reins up and leaving it. I got the biggest almighty telling off. I didn't do it. She went, the woman who owned the stable said to me, "Where are you going?" I went, "I need to go get changed." And she went, "No." She said, "Whenever you come back for a ride, that horse comes first. It doesn't matter where you're soaking, whether or not you're down for the loo, whether or not blah, 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 blah. That horse comes first." And I was only 11 or something like that. I wasn't somebody who was perhaps making the understanding that as a child. But no, that's when she told me, "Well, horse comes first." But when you look into the different ways of doing things, like what Warwick is doing and things like that, the words "the horse comes first" means something slightly different.
What stays with you now since music has passed?
That I did the right thing.
Mm.
Um, what state in terms of in terms of putting him to sleep, that I did the right thing. In terms of other things, just that he was a gift.
Mm.
He was a gift. Um, I don't think he taught me everything, and no, it's one of those things where he's like, he taught me everything and nothing, but everything, because we didn't do
Mm.
anything. Does that make sense?
But you still did
But we did
something,
loads.
even though
Yeah, excuse me.
from the outside it's like you weren't.
Yeah, I've been doing too much talking.
um, well, I tend to ask people questions. I think you've already covered it, but I'm still going to ask it in case there's anything else that shows up. So what gifts have you received from horses that keep showing up for you or are showing up for you right now?
Um, that they help everything drop away. I've done too much talking. They help everything drop away when you're around them. They're just magical beings. They're magical. Um, they're just, even when I see horses on social media and things, and the reels and what have you, they're just magical. There's a guy who goes around with a black Shetland pony. It's called Patrick, and he visits old people's homes and things like that. And Patrick has helped him with his mental health, but he also helps others with their mental health by seeing this. And the horse goes into the the living room with him and stuff. It's quite funny, but they're just magical.
So we're back from a short break. So we just have like a couple of questions left. So Vicky, what message do you want to send out into the horse world about horses?
That's a very good question. We need to be more understanding of horses, animals in general, but understanding of horses. And for example, like the racing industry, um, and what the future of that horse looks like post racing.
Mm.
Um, they are magical beings, and some horses never actually make a race. They're too slow in training, aren't they? So they never actually end up on the racetrack. But there is a necessity to understand what the future of that horse is after it's finished racing, whether it makes it to the track or not. There's a lot of people rescuing race horses, which is very admirable. But so it's twofold in a sense. It's a plan for horses after racing, and that plan, knowing what that plan is and having it sort
Mm.
of kind of in place, um, or money there to know what to do to rehab that horse or change its muscle structure, all the things that have to be done after racing. But there's also people understanding when they're taking a racehorse on that they are completely different. They're everything structurally, biomechanically will be different, because of what they've been through. And
Mm.
really, at what point do we retire racehorses? When
Yeah.
they've gone into other things like endurance or what have you. Because, like I said before, for music, um, he would have started very young. He also came across from America because he was imported. Um, and he had a very good breed line as well. I seem to remember, but he was imported. So his education and the interactions, hard interactions, started very young. So what age does that make him in reality? Was he 17, 18, or was he much older really in terms of his how old his body was? Um, so I don't know if I'm answering the right question.
Yeah, no, and I
Um,
think as well it's like maybe well, maybe we shouldn't put them into work after coming off the track and just let them live their life in companionship and friendship with humans and horses.
yeah, yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, maybe so. I I I have to say as well, lot of things that make me question. Have you watched Beck's Nairn work? Have you
No,
heard
don't
of a
think
woman
so.
called Beck's Nairn? She
No.
is Bex is from New Zealand. Um, and she's her I think her original work was taxidermy.
Hmm.
But what she does now is using her skills with that is that she actually does a lot of investigative work with horses that have come off the track, and actually is able to teach people what's going on underneath the skin because we can't see what's going on underneath the skin. And if I could have done, I was actually I was investigating whether or not I could have had music uh, dissected and investigated, because Bex was coming over to do some work. It was the educational piece was going to happen in Glasgow, but logistically, and something else happened in my life around the same time my brother died as well. I wouldn't have been able to do it. I wouldn't have been able to handle it emotionally. Um,
Mm.
and um, and there were some logistical things, but to understand and confirm, I guess, what was going on for music, that would have been it would have been it sounds horrible, and I don't mean it to sound horrible, but it would have sort of been it would have been a good closure, because I would have known the reason what was going on with his pelvis, because there was
Yeah.
definitely something
Because there's
going on
such
there.
a mystery, wasn't there?
Oh yeah,
Because of so
such a
much.
mystery. Um,
Yeah.
but that those things could have been answered by that dissection. But anyway, that wasn't to be. I'm still clear and happy with the decision. Not happy, that's the wrong word. I made the correct decision.
At peace with.
at
Yeah.
peace with. Yes, thank you. So I think as well, just rounding that off, when you go into horse ownership, you have to be prepared to make that decision
Mm.
because it's a very hard decision. It's different when it's made for you because they've
Yeah.
broken the leg.
Because of colic or
Um,
whatever.
yeah, it's very different. Now, it's still painful, don't get me wrong, but it's a very different thing when you have no choice. When it
Or if they
looks like
just
there's a
drop
choice.
dead as well,
Yeah,
that's kind of
yeah,
easier because they've just
abs-
gone.
yeah, yeah, in a way. Um, but all of the loss is still very significant. But having to
Mm.
make that decision where there's have you ever heard of the term, a, a day early is better than a week late?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're definitely looking at, I was definitely, a couple of hours earlier, early than a week late. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Um, he wasn't specifically suffering. He wasn't stood in a corner, depressed. You know,
No.
he was running about and looked, like I say, looked to be enjoying, which is why probably some people couldn't get their head around what it was that I was doing, other than respecting my decision. But that is the case. A day early is better than a week late. And I've done that with all my animals that I've had. I had a cat that was poorly, and the vet looked at me and said, "What's wrong with him?" And I said, "He's got kidney failure." And he went, "I wish everybody was like you."
Mm.
So,
I got two more questions.
okay,
This one might make you laugh or smile,
okay.
or I'm not sure. If your
I'll,
horse could tell us about you, what do you feel he would say? So if music could talk to us now and say something about you, what would it be?
that is funny. Would it be? She's over caring, but I think he would thank me for the transition.
Yeah, because you gave him that.
I gave him that. He's not in any pain whatsoever, intermittent or otherwise.
Yeah,
He's got no arthritis anymore.
nice. I like that. And then the last one, where or what makes you feel wild?
Um, where or what makes me feel wild? That's a question I'm not sure that I can answer. I live in the middle of a forest in Scotland on purpose because I can't do my ADHD brain will not let me do consistency because even though I need it, or routine even though I need it. So I'm pretty wild all the time.
Love that. Well, thank you very much for your time today and your beautiful stories,
Thank you very
especially
much.
about the transition, because I think a lot of people will resonate with what you've said today. So thank you for your vulnerability and your honesty.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
If people want to find you, where can they find you
Well,
besides in
they
a
can,
forest?
besides the forest. I'd my work. I'm an ADHD coach, so I have a business called The Hatful of Bees. And you can follow me on Facebook if you want. And that's all to do with my neurodivergent brain and hints and tips with help with things like that. And obviously I also do that for a living. So if anybody felt that they needed some support with their neurodivergent brain, then I can possibly help you with some strategies because it doesn't work for everybody, but it does work for some. And the majority of people that I've worked with have felt that their time with me has been worth it.
Nice.
Although that's
Well,
nothing to do with horses, but there you go.
I felt the same too. I've really enjoyed this, so thank you very much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Take care.
Thanks.
time before you walked into my life. You took the broken parts of me and made it all alright. There's an easiness to your grace that I will never know, and every day this feeling only grows. And every moment with you just bleeds into one. Your easy smile greets my eyes just like the morning sun, a reflection of my soul, one heart that beats for two. Just know, my love, that I will carry you.